There are many things I can do, and many more that I can't. I've come to appreciate the beauty of embracing both my strengths and limitations. Each challenge becomes an open canvas where I can blend the knowledge I've acquired with the colors of my determination. There is solace in realizing that it's not just about mastering every skill, but about the joy found in the process of doing. However, these limitations are rooted in reality. Time and resources are finite, and some creative endeavors call my name more faintly than the rest. It just so happens to be that painting is one such endeavor. What the did I just make? Yeah, I don't know how to paint. I love the art form, but more as an admirer than a creator. So when I make the claim that I can turn myself into an animated painting, what do I even mean? I believe the most valuable skill anyone can develop comes into play here: adaptability. This is about finding a way to achieve the end result precisely because I lack that experience. The question then is, if I'm to create this animation, do I really need to learn how to paint? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. If I can take the final product that's in my head and work it backwards into smaller pieces, then the whole thing becomes a little less daunting. So let's give this a shot. I want a painting style piece for the final product. Since I have no ideas yet, I'm gonna need to spend some time storyboarding. Once I have the concept, I can then start doing tests, shooting the scenes, and building out any digital needs. Then it's a matter of compositing it all together to create a complete sequence, which I can then turn into a painting. There are gaps in this, but that kind of doesn't matter. What I just made is a solid foundation for a workflow to get from beginning to end, and I can adapt as I go. Let's start with the storyboard. After spending a decent amount of time drawing and sitting there trying to concept how to make this all work, I came up with this. So let's actually go through the storyboard right now. We start with the camera moving closer to a painting until we're pulled inside. A spotlight is turned on above me with a transition to some close-up cards. Following a scene with the symbols, we push through to a silhouette of me, ending on a macro shot of my eye where my pupil changes. So that's basically the idea. Now I just need to make the shots and see if this all comes together. And we may end up changing some things, but there's only one way to find out. Hello again. It is quite a few hours later, and we are now fully dark and set up for some shooting. There's 4 shots I need to get done tonight. The establishing shot, that overhead shot, the silhouette shot, and then the close-up of my eye. And I think I could get all of that done tonight. I'm gonna do the overhead shot first. I think the idea is I'm gonna lift the camera up and I'm gonna set up a little black blanket on the ground and see if this works. Okay, all right, I think I already found a little bit of an issue here. And I don't know if you could tell, but you can't really see my legs in this. I think I'm gonna change pants to something a little bit lighter. First bit of problem solving. I'll be back. And just like that, much better. My legs should actually show up now in the shot. I think that turned out pretty well. Yeah, let's move on to the next shot. Shot number 2, which is really shot number 1. I'm gonna be sitting down on my stool here in front of a black backdrop, kind of portraiture-ish, think like oil painting fancy, but I need to set up that black blanket that I used in the last shot on the wall, so I'm just gonna duct tape it and hopefully it stays. I look like I'm about to take my yearbook photo. So as long as the black backdrop stays, which I think it is, then I should be good to just look up at the camera. We'll see if this works. Let's get this shot done. I just finished. This is so goofy, but I think it'll work. I think it'll work with the painting and the right sound design and music. Yeah, on to the next shot. Let's get the silhouette shot done. The idea for this shot is shooting directly into the softbox, but exposing for the light instead of me. So I'm full on silhouette. Let's get this grid off. All right, fully silhouetted. All I need to do is just stand right here in front of the light, just get the shot, and that's it. And then right here where the edges are, I can expand this out in After Effects. Finally, on the last shot of me, it's just a macro shot of my eye. So I have the extension tubes here that let me get really close, and all I gotta do is just position myself right here. I'm gonna get this done. And there you have it, all finished. It's just past midnight. I'm gonna pack it up and go to sleep because I'm pretty tired. I'd say good shoot day. We got this done. Let's pause for a moment. I've gotten many questions about how I sound design my projects and if I could share my personal library. So because of that, I made it a mission to get a very specific sponsor for this video, the brand that I've been using for years in my personal and commercial work, Artlist. While editing this video, I made a collection of every single sound effect I used, plus tons of extras that didn't even make the cut. Everything you heard from the intro all the way to the final piece use sounds only from their massive library. And not only that, their seemingly endless repository of music is a huge source of inspiration for me across my work. I mentioned the sound design, but even the music from this video is all from Artlist. And if you like a particular song or sound effect, it's actually really easy to navigate to the creator's page to discover more of their work, which I did a lot of in this video, and it's very useful. I haven't even mentioned their unmatched video assets, which you can easily browse through with their new AI-powered search engine. You can search based on lighting, mood, or composition, and even use their suggested sound effects feature to help you find the perfect match. They have a bunch of different plans depending on your needs, whether you're an individual making socials content or a business or freelancer doing commercial work. And one of the most important elements for me, besides of course the high quality, is being entirely protected from copyright issues on videos like this. If you use my link to sign up for an annual plan, you get 2 months for free and have access to the collection of sounds I mentioned, which will both be linked below. Thank you to Artlist for being my first ever channel sponsor, and I hope you guys check it out. It's time to discuss the elephant in the room. Now, in the list of steps, I mentioned turning the piece into a painting as the last stage, and it is. But before getting into compositing, knowing what I'm headed towards allows me to think ahead as I make decisions. So, how am I turning myself into a painting? With an app called Acvis Oil Paint. I've actually used it before. One of my personal favorite sequences I've ever made is for the trailer from the editing and animation course I launched last year with my brother. And there's an announcement at the end of the video if you're interested in taking that course, but I'll save that for later. Anyway, here's a side-by-side for the before and after. The piece was first animated in After Effects, and then the frames were ran through Acvis to change the style. Is it the same as painting every frame by hand? Of course not. My goal isn't to say, look how easy it is to be an oil painter with this digital trick. Honestly, this feels kind of closely related to the debate around AI art. Personally, I'm not a fan of stripping the human element out and just having AI create the whole thing. To me, that isn't really art, but since it's subjective, to each their own. Where I think there's a difference is when AI, or programs like Acvis, are used as an assisting tool to explore one's creativity further. A good example of this is like generative fill from Photoshop. But that's just my take. Let me know what you think in the comments. With everything recorded, it was just a matter of working some magic. So let's go through each shot, shall we? Starting with the establishing shot, I first color graded it in Resolve and then brought it into After Effects. Extending out the background was simple, and I used a 3D camera to push into the darkness for a fake dolly movement. Running a single frame to test Acvis ended up with some pretty promising results. The overhead light shot was next. After picking a section that I thought would work, I spent a ridiculously long time cutting myself out. In retrospect, I probably should have done a sloppy version first because what ended up happening is I didn't like that take. After building up the scene with the overhead lights and shapes underneath, I messed around with glow settings and then made the decision to redo the cutout all over again. It was worth it though, especially when we look at the paint test for this scene. Next was the close-up card shot. The main trick here was to unstretch the suits on the card in order to match with the next scene. Speaking of which, this scene was split into 2 sections, animating the background texture, which I did as sort of a shifting puzzle loop, and then the main suits in the center, which I spent a bit of time giving some depth with gradients. Matching the pacing of the cards on stretching with this 4 suits scene here made for a pretty nice match cut. As storyboarded, I wanted the heart to act as a window to transition to the next shot, so I cleaned up the silhouette and extended out the edges with a white shape, as well as added a little bit of glow to tie it all together. Then using the heart as a mat for the shot, I was able to flow right through the 4 suit scene into this shot. And with that, there was only one piece left, the eye. This one I definitely underestimated. First, I spent some time manually stabilizing my eye on the pupil. This way I could composite in elements a bit easier, especially since I planned to replace the pupil. I took a frame into Photoshop and started painting the pupil out so I could have a clean plate. A little disclaimer, it's a little unsettling to see, but I promise the final result is worth it. Bringing it back into After Effects, I remade the reflections to place back on top. I then cut out my eye, which sounds a lot worse than it actually is, so I could place the clean plate inside. Finally, I brought in the suits and messed around with blending modes, distorting them to fit, and extra little details like shading underneath the eyelid to really sell the effect. It's funny because once I ran it through Acvis, most of that detail kind of just disappeared, but I do think it actually made a difference for the final painting result to look as good as possible. And that was really it. Except for one major problem. I didn't like the intro anymore. It just didn't fit the playing card theme. So just like everything else in this video, it was time to adapt. I reset and gave it another go, this time incorporating the playing cards. I don't know any card tricks, so I settled on learning to card spring the deck, practicing just enough to make it work for this reshoot. In hindsight, I probably should have caught this in the storyboarding phase, but it's akin to looking too close at a painting to notice its flaws. Sometimes it's not until after you step back to admire the whole thing that you realize what needs adjustment. Being finished doesn't always mean that the work is complete. And this is why I stress the importance of learning to adapt. Just like how this whole project started with not being able to paint, there's always a solution to be found. Resigning to defeat is not how you progress. The bottom line is, if you can, and you know it'll make your project even just a little bit better, then you should. And you know what? I think it was worth it, as you're about to see right now. finished piece is up on my Instagram right now if you want to go watch it loop a few times. And if this video inspired you and you'd like to start your own creative journey, I suggest checking out the course I co-created with my brother, Frame by Frame. Inside, I share my complete perspective on animation, as well as many lessons breaking down specific animations, my personal favorite techniques, and so much more. You can get the animation part of the course by itself, plus get 10% off when you use this code. Or if you'd like to make videos like this, you can get an even better deal by getting the full Frame by Frame course, which includes a deep dive into cameras, shooting, script writing, post-production, and of course animation, basically making it a full filmmaking masterclass. The link to all of that is below if you want to learn more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.